Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see, my friends Craig and Stacy Schroeder joining us from Fight with Flash. It's been a few weeks, but before we get with Craig and Stacy, a reminder here, this show, James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, going to join us here and talk about the upcoming NFL draft, as well as the upcoming Hawkeye spring game on Saturday, April 23rd. And then to close out the show, Kennington Lloyd Smith III, with the Des Moines Register and USA Today, HawkCentral.com. He's also going to put everything in a neat bow for us, talk a little bit about Chris Murray and the Iowa Hawkeye men's basketball team. So as usual, a lot going on, but a lot going on with you two as always too. Craig, Stacy, it's been a few weeks. Good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, good to see you too.
We're doing great.
Doing great.
Outstanding. Looking great as always. Love the pink with the black flash. And of course, Craig's got the white polo with the Fight with Flash. Love it, love it. Again, Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook.com or fightwithflash.org. So Craig and Stacy, we spent the last couple weeks, you know, Tater Tough. We had a coming up on that year anniversary of his sad passing. And then last week when we had Parker Hesse and Jake Gervais talking about Rally for Reed, hashtag Rally for Reed with that foundation for that poor young man passing away with Reed Gleason, and his parents are so kind in sharing their information with the football camp again in Davenport this year with Parker and Jake Gervais, but the rest of the Hawkeyes coming back for that. So it's always something, and Craig, you and I will talk in just a little bit about Owen Skelly, and it's not just cancer, but mental health issues we want to touch on as well. But Stacy, it's been a couple weeks since you and Craig and I teased the viewing public here about the Good Grief conference you at and you spoke to, and Craig said that he just did his usual marginal job and you killed it. Is that true?
Well, of course it's true. It was such a special conference that was put on, and helping all different types of grief, because everybody goes through grief in some way. It was all different types, and I feel like everybody deserves to attend a conference like that. So it was put on by the No Foot Too Small group, and we love them, and it was just a special day all around. So it was great to share our story again, as we love to share, but to hear everybody else's story too, and how you can get through it. You really can get through it.
And you two are a shining example of that, and congrats to them for being able to hear it, but congrats to you guys again for killing it as always. So, you know, Craig, it's interesting. So thank you for that, Stacy. And Craig, it is interesting. We're talking about certain dates in time with Tater Tough and the Gleasons with Reed, and also now we talk about, cannot believe we're approaching 7 years for Flash's passing on April 28th. It'll be 7 years. Owen Skelly, where the purple bands you have on for OS 14, and his birthday was April 14th last week, and would have been 16 years old, and sadly took his own life, to Stacy's point about grief. And look in on those that you care about, and if you haven't heard from someone in a while, or they're not feeling it, maybe you brighten their day with something. But we can't overlook, as Stacy mentioned with grief, we can't overlook mental health.
No, we can't, absolutely. And you know, this coming Friday, it'll be the 22nd of April, and actually it's Owen Skelly Memorial golf outing is going to be coming up, so we're all going to be able to get together and honor Owen that day and play, and hopefully Stacy and I will be on the other side of the course from our daughter, because typically people get injured when she's around with a golf club. So, no, it's going to be really, really good, and everybody. Mental health is so important. I mean, the thing is that everybody struggles with things in their life, and some people try to take that burden upon themselves, and they try to hold it within and bury it down until the point that it causes too much struggle. And it's very, very important that we all need to understand, we all go through things, so reach out to somebody. Don't keep it inside. Reach it out to a friend, reach out to a family member, reach out to a professional, either at your church or a counselor or someone like that.
And you know, Craig, sometimes when you start to feel overwhelmed, even that's too late. So stay on top of it as much as you can. But yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the golf event on the 22nd, Flash's number 22. But we'll be talking to you next week and getting ready to memorialize or get more into living out Flash's dream, and 7 years and counting. It's just unfathomable. Next Thursday, the 28th. So great seeing you two as always. Thank you so much. It's Craig and Stacy Schroeder, Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook or fightwithflash.org. We'll see you next week. Craig and Stacy, thanks.
Thank you. Can I just mention really quick about, we just put out on our Facebook site, the Fight with Flash apparel. Nike apparel is out there for order. So if anybody wants to go to the website and check it out.
Hey, not just Facebook, Instagram as well, and Twitter. I saw it all over the place. Liked it, shared it, got going. So I'm glad you jumped in with that. Great stuff.
Thanks.
For Craig and Stacy Schroeder, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with James Vandenberg and Kenny Smith with Hawkeyed in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. You can see our buddy James Vandenberg joining us. Long time in coming. Last month or so, we've done a lot of basketball interviews and caught up on some football stuff, but definitely time to catch up with James Vandenberg again going into the NFL draft. By the time you see this show, we'll be getting ready less than a week coming. So on the 28th of April, the NFL draft that weekend, and then, of course, the Iowa spring game. If you're seeing this on Friday night or throughout the weekend, Iowa spring game is on Saturday, which, is upcoming. So get ready for that. First of all, good to see you again. It's been a while. Thanks for joining us again, James.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Hey, I got to ask you right off the top, what are guys going through? You had your claim to fame with the Vikings and you went on a free agency, but when guys are going into the draft, and as you kind of chuckle, but you know how it is. I mean, I've talked to Mark Vlasic long before your time in the late 80s, and, Vlasic was out washing his car in his driveway, and he was a third-round draft pick or in the middle rounds, and came inside in his answering machine back in the day before cell phones, and it was just filled with messages from the Chargers and other teams that were looking at him and saying, hey, we're going to take you. And it's really interesting how this has morphed into a big 3-day event, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So again, the 28th, 29th, and the 30th, 7 rounds complete. And again, the spring game this Saturday, the 23rd, festivities start about 9:45, but we'll get to that in a minute. But what were your prospects? And you and I have had this conversation off the air before, but take the listeners and viewers who don't know this story into that. What did you go through in that periphery level of maybe being drafted or a preferred free agent?
Well, yeah, I'll just generalize it a little bit. And it's interesting for those guys and for me at that time, just you go from this student athlete, which maybe the NIL is changing this a little bit. But I mean, you're working football work and going to school just constantly. And then spring shows up and you start kind of getting ready for the draft and combine and pro day. And you just have gobs of time. I mean, I remember just thinking there's a boredom aspect to it, quite frankly. You can only train so many hours. And so, those guys, their life is shifting from every second being controlled to really concentrating on diet, health. Not that they weren't doing that before, but you're doing that in the middle of a tornado that is being a student athlete. All of a sudden, those guys, even if they're not drafted yet, they're treating themselves like professional athletes right now. And the fact that basically every second is devoted to recovery, training. Those guys have already checked all the boxes at this point with pro day and the combine. And now it's purely just visits with teams, interviews with teams, and then ultimately draft day. And so, it's going to be something that a lot of lives get changed. And at this point, the hay's in the barn, so to speak, and it's just waiting time outside of a couple of interviews.
Yeah, we've heard so many of the weird questions they'll ask. Did you sit through those interviews, and did you get any weird questions about your background or family, or what was the weirdest question you were asked?
I did the interviews, but I don't have any weird questions that I remember. Some people were more surface level. Some people literally, we did like a thesis on their playbook versus our playbook and it kind of everywhere in between. But I don't have any good stories on wacky questions that were asked.
And you survived the Wonderlic test. That's the other big claim to fame this time of year is like Des Bryant got all these weird questions about his mom and his family, or that was made famous years ago. And then, of course, the Wonderlic test, the scoring of either A, how high a guy is or how low, or people get surprised by how well guys did, but that's always fascinating.
That test is interesting. It literally has questions, Dave, like this. If you are 23 and your sister is 2 years older than you, how old is your sister? Literally is like 50% of the question. Now, the problem comes in the fact that there's a time crunch, and it's like even to read some of the questions. And so if you would have given me time, I would have liked to think that I would get 50 out of 50 on that test every single day, maybe since I was like in 6th grade. But the problem comes into the time aspect of it. And I think I only got like high 30s done, and I scored in the high 30s. I literally ran out of time. Like I didn't even get to questions in the 40s, and there's 50 questions. So, but the difficulty of the questions is let's just say if somebody scored a 6, I would be really, really worried. Like, really worried.
Yeah, it's one of those, they maybe give you credit for spelling your name or writing your name, and they got that wrong too.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
right.
I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, so is
Do you capitalize? Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, some of the questions are ridiculous.
I had a friend of mine who coached college basketball, JUCO, and he had a kid come in from LA, and he said, you know, on the application where it says name, address, and then city or town, the kid put city because he was from LA. So city or town, he put city. So maybe it was a time crunch for that kid too. I don't know. But what is it, like 15 minutes for those 50 questions, or what is do you remember what the time frame was?
I'm blanking on the time frame. I feel like it's even quicker than that.
Oh wow!
But
because they want you to think on your feet, obviously. Yeah, so they want you thinking on.
Though, is the time aspect. So I mean, even how some of those smart guys do it in 50, or get all 50 done, or even high 40s. It's impressive that they can cycle through, like just reading that quick.
Wow.
And I'm a fast reader. I mean, I went fast, I thought, and was a good student, but the difficulty is not the problem. The timing aspect is the problem.
Well, and you mentioned the waiting. So for Tyler Linderbaum, shouldn't be much of a wait. A lot of the mock drafts I've seen anywhere from, 8 to 12, top 15 for sure, depending what source you use for your NFL mock drafts. But then it's the Dane Beltons of the world and other guys that are going to, are they going to get taken in the third, fourth? When does it happen? To your point about the waiting game, that's got to be tough, I got to believe.
Well, and there can be so much variance. I mean, you could be being told second and third and go fifth, sixth, and you can be told fifth, sixth and go second and third. I mean, maybe not second, but I mean, it truly is a guessing game, and it truly comes down to a team really liking you and believing in you. And a team might pick you sooner by doing that, and they might pick you later if they think they can get you later by doing that. I mean, but it's out of their control, and at the end of the day, it's like you just want an opportunity. And those guys are going to get opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. The intriguing thing, we all remember that Aaron Rodgers video of him waiting when he went way later in the first round instead of in the top handful. And Alex Smith, of course, went first in that draft, and Rodgers thought he was going to stay in California. And even when it's in the first round, as the farther you drop, you keep hearing the cash register ding as you're losing money as you fall farther down. And it's intriguing that you bring that up because, it's not even the rounds where your money starts dropping. It's position of pick. So it's become a fascinating art form.
That's the psychology aspect. I mean, if you're expecting to go second and you go second, you're pumped. If you're expecting to go first and you go second, you're pissed.
Exactly.
So yeah. I guess I think agents should just be under promising and over delivering more, and not vice versa.
I like that. And, it's become an art form in and of itself these 3 days with draft parties and everything else. It's going to be fun to watch. But, hey, James, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll do segment 2 with you talking about the spring game upcoming, or spring ball at the University of Iowa football, rolling into the summer and then the fall. So looking forward to catching up with you in just a moment. If you would hold for us, please.
Sounds good.
All right, great. For James Vandenberg, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeyed in just a few moments, and we'll close out the show with the Des Moines Register and USA Today's Kenny Smith will be joining us from HawkCentral.com, so looking forward to catching up with him as well. So back with more Hawkeyed in just a few moments.
To make the Mershman Seeds delivery experience even better this year, Mershman Seeds is offering you a brand new Apple app called Mershman Delivers. It will give you the estimated time of delivery down to the second, and updates you as our truck makes its way to your dealership. Mershman Delivers will provide you the answer to the #1 question we get when it comes to delivery. When exactly will the Mershman truck be here? Available on the Apple App Store. Download Mershman Delivers today.
Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we are participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Our buddy James Vandenberg holding over for us, former Hawkeye quarterback and great. James now with RBC Wealth Management. You see all his information at the bottom of the screen, setting the financial world ablaze. Great stuff from James as always, and he joins us throughout the regular football season of college football. But catching up with him and getting our dose of James's advice and thoughts going into spring ball, then summer, and then fall camp. And then James will be joining us on the regular again as we roll back into fall football. So, James, got to get right to it in reference to spring ball. What are the quarterbacks going through? Of course, the Iowa spring game, Saturday, April 23rd, 9:45 festivities, kick off, a lot going on before, during, and after the game. So things changed a little bit from your time to now, but kind of take us into what's happening, the game-wise itself. Take us into what's happening with some of the players right now, especially quarterbacks, James.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects of spring ball. Number one, it is the biggest developmental time. I mean, for guys who aren't playing or guys who are second string, third string, I mean, this is where you make hay and you move up the depth chart. And so that's extremely important. For more veteran guys, it's, I mean, understanding maybe who's playing next to you. I mean, we're going to have a new center this year, I think. And so, I mean, it's getting used to whoever's going to be next to you. That's a quarterback. That's going to be running backs, receivers, linemen, obviously it's the guy next to you. So it's just kind of tightening those bonds. But in general, this is a real developmental phase. Not that it's not important for veterans, but the guys who will make the biggest strides are those first and second year guys during this time of year.
And don't you find it interesting, James? I've talked to former players over the years or media folks, and they'll say, spring ball is overrated or overblown. It's not that much. Then you talk to other people, depending on that player's situation, to your point about getting used to new people, like with a guy like Tyler Linderbaum leaving, and now you got to replace your center. Then you hear people say, oh, no, spring ball is very important. That's where things are put in place.
I think at Iowa, I mean, for our success, I think it is, you could rank it up there in the top 3 most important things we do.
Very good. What are the other two?
It's very important to how we want to build players and how we want to grow players. It's really important in our system.
Well, that answers my first question. So that's how important it is. But what are the other 2 things? You said one of the 3 very important things at Iowa. What are the other 2 important things?
Oh, running the ball and playing defense. Duh, Dave.
Punting is winning. Well, I was going to say, we'll put punting in with defense because as we know at Iowa, punting is winning, right, James?
Exactly.
Well, so now if we go into the quarterback room, as you mentioned, with right now anyway, and we talked about this with Ferentz now being a quarterback coach and his own offensive coordinator. And you said that wouldn't be that much of an issue, and you kind of liked it because you usually played for one quarterback coach and one offensive coordinator combined. So reiterate that for us, if you would, please. What's going in with the offense? Coach Brian Ferentz, but also with Labus, Padilla, and with Spencer Petras going into the spring, please.
Well, I'm not exactly in that room, so I don't know how the kind of the battle or the jockeying is going on. But as far as Brian being the OC and the QB coach, I think that's only upside versus downside. If anything, it strengthens the connections with the quarterbacks. Make sure that literally in every single meeting now they are with Brian and as the OC. But it's going to help that whole room grow. It's going to help Brian grow. Our whole offense just needed to grow a year, quite frankly, just tack a year onto their age. And I feel better about our whole offense. And so between Brian being more interconnected and the fact that everybody's going to have an extra year under their belt, I think we can expect the offense to take strides.
And obviously you're not in that quarterback room, but putting you in that helmet again from years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, as a starting QB going into camp like Spencer Petras is. If you're Padilla, do you just still try to stay the course and get better each day to take over from Spencer? Same with Labus. Or if you're Spencer, do you just say, hey, as he's been saying in spring interviews, going into the spring game and then into summer drills and then fall workouts and then into games? He's just saying, I'm going to stay the course and get better every day. Are all 3 kind of at the same plane? You're not really playing to try to get ahead of the guy. You're just trying to play your best. Is that the mindset?
Well, yeah. I mean, inherently, you're going to feel like you're playing against the other guy. But, I mean, it's not that much different than golf. It's like I can't go kick that guy's ball. Like I got a birdie and par. And so, I mean, those guys will be jockeying in their head against each other. But you got to make do with the reps you get, and you got to do the best job you can. And so much of that as like a younger guy like Labus is mentally. I mean, how quick can he process? How quick does he see things? That's where I mean, he's getting judged by the coaches on what stride he was at last spring ball versus where he's at this spring ball. I don't think that's any different for Padilla or Petrus, but it's the younger you are, the more the coaches want to see you making those mental strides, which then should turn into better physical performances. So they're not competing against each other, but they are. But ultimately, they've got to go out and just take advantage of the reps they get.
Great to catch up with you again. You got us set and going for the NFL draft upcoming, the Iowa spring game, football spring game upcoming, and getting us into the spring and summer drills, into the fall game, drills and games. So look forward to catching up with you later this summer, going into fall. Thank you, James, so much as always.
Sounds good, Dave. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, too. Thanks so much. For James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back to close out the show with the Des Moines Register and USA Today's Kenny Smith. Back with more Hawkeye in a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair, upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing the book on it? Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds has been treating soybeans for decades, long before it was commonplace. We're the leader in technology, introducing Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, with an added fungicide to help produce a faster, more even emergence every single time. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. You can see our buddy Kenny Smith at SkinnyKenny_ via social media. Kennington Lloyd Smith III with the Des Moines Register and USA Today. Also, HawkCentral.com. Kenny, I'm getting the heck out of the way. I'm going to tee you up and talk about Billy Taylor going to Elon University. Congrats to him, leaving the Iowa coaching staff with Fran McCaffrey, becoming a head coach. Chris Murray declaring for the draft, but retaining his eligibility, has until June 13th. Joe Toussaint leaving Iowa, going to West Virginia. Joshua Gundele and Austin Ash are not going to be staying at Iowa, entering the portal. Haven't decided where yet. And then we're going to talk football with you to close out. So I'm getting out of the way, and fire away when you're ready, please.
All right, so just some quick thoughts on each of the things that you named. Starting with Billy Taylor, like you said, congratulations to him. And when I think about Billy Taylor, what really sticks out to me was the interim win over Minnesota in early February. When you think about where Iowa was at that point in the season, they were kind of spiraling. We didn't know if they were going to make the tournament. They were kind of on the bubble, falling in the Big Ten standings. And Fran McCaffrey catches COVID right after the Ohio State postponement. Right. Billy Taylor leads them to a win that really jump-started what was a really special February for the Iowa team. So that's a really big loss in terms of what he brought to the table. I was very impressed with him in the times that we were able to.
And great relationships with the players, too.
Yes, definitely. The way that he carried himself in all of his interviews when we were able to meet with him, it just screamed head coach to me. I didn't know much about his background at that time, but learning that he was a previous head coach at other places, it really makes perfect sense. And it'll be interesting to see how they fill that void. In terms of Chris Murray, support that decision. I think it's a good decision to go and get that information from NBA teams, to use that to his benefit, to have the offseason that he wants so he can take that big leap next year. That's what we presume that he's going to do, is to return at Iowa. He kind of teased that in his announcement, that he's doing this in order to pursue a bigger goal and to kind of use that as a way to gain information and learn going into the next year.
But think about this. You and I teased this a couple weeks ago. Jeff Horner mentioned a former great player and now coach, Jeff Horner. Don't be surprised if somebody may take a flyer in the second round on Chris. So he may have some decisions to make. Again, congrats to Joe T. And Joshua Gundele and Austin Ash. We'll have more of that as the stories break. Heller ball going in full effect with baseball. But let's get to spring football. We got the spring game coming. You've talked to players. You'll be talking to coaches tomorrow. Last week with some of the younger guys in Cooper DeJean and LaShawn Williams. Today being Tuesday, April 19th. So we record on Tuesday afternoons as always. And so you'll be talking to the offensive coaches and some other coaches tomorrow. And you said Barnett and who else?
Liddell Betts.
So you got a lot of coming. Yeah. So let's get to the spring game, and what are you expecting on Saturday?
Yeah, really what I'm looking for is at the start, how they play at the line of scrimmage. I think that last year the defensive line was a huge question mark going into the summer period in the fall, and they showed themselves to be a productive unit, and they're bringing a lot back. When you look at the offensive line, I think that there are still major questions on that side of the ball. We talk about who's going to play at center, movement all across the offensive line to figure out the best five. I'm really interested in watching that group against what is now an experienced and pretty veteran defensive line. So I want to see how they can contend, and if Iowa's offense is able to, get some push on the line of scrimmage and able to move the offense forward. Outside of that, I want to see how the quarterbacks and the pass catchers get into a rhythm if they're able to get the ball in the hands of playmakers like Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce, Sam Laporta. When we had Brian Ferentz a few weeks ago, he said that the more that the quarterback has the ball in their hands, the worse that it is for us, because we want to put our playmakers in a position to catch the ball quickly and go and make a play with it. We don't want to have our quarterbacks holding the ball too long. Things might be able to go awry. So I want to see if those type of play designs can come into fruition, and then past that, if the timing of the quarterbacks and the pass catchers is up to par at this point in the year.
We are going to catch up with you after that spring game soon. So great stuff as always. Thank you so much, Kenny. Sorry for the short time today.
Oh, yeah, no
we hit a lot of that with James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, and again, thanks to Craig and Stacy Schroeder with Fight with Flash as well. To you, the viewers, I'm Gabe O'Hara with Hawkeye. Thank you very much for tuning in. That's all from us. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guest and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.